Let's blow that up a little bit bigger here for you and put that in the middle. So the gluten-induced gut damage cycle, right? And so here's what we've got. We've got a person who gets gluten exposure, okay? And if they're gluten sensitive, whether they're celiac or non-celiac, right? Gluten causes gut damage. Gut damage leads to nutritional deficiencies. Nutritional deficiencies can cause new symptoms and new disease. That can lead to poor health, which when most people are struggling, what do? Well, they don't heal as well. They continue to struggle until their symptoms grow, right? And that leads to more doctor visits. And then more doctor's visits, generally, depending on the type of doctor, most people go to a mainstream medical doctor. Mainstream medical doctors are trained to medicate your symptoms. They're not trained to identify why your symptoms exist. This is the fundamental problem. This is why in America and in most industrialized countries, but specifically in America, the healthcare is $1 trillion industry. It's the #1 source of outgoing revenue that Americans spend. Yet, we spend all that money, but what do we get for the expenditure? We have record cancer, record-breaking heart disease, record-breaking autoimmunity, record-breaking diabetes and obesity and bone loss, etc. So we have all this money that we spend on all these doctor's visits that lead to more medications that don't really solve the problem, right? And then, one of the things that you have to consider with more medication is that leads to what's called drug-induced nutritional deficiencies. So drugs don't come without a cost. When you take medicine to suppress your symptoms, many medicines actually cause nutritional deficiencies. But wait a second, we started out over here, didn't we, right? So the gluten was causing nutritional deficiencies that were leading to gut, or that were leading to symptoms and disease. Now we're taking medicine to treat the symptoms caused by nutritional deficiencies, and we're actually creating more nutritional deficiencies in the process of taking that medication. But that's not all. Many of the medications also lead to gut damage. A lot of your medicines actually cause gut damage. It's one of the side effects. I mean, perfect example, over-the-counter, ibuprofen. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories damage the gut. Steroids, which are a common treatment modality for people with autoimmune disease, damage the gut. Certain blood pressure medications damage the gut. So the antibiotics damage the gut. So a lot of the main, the top medicines that are dispensed to cover the symptoms end up creating the gut damage, but they also cause nutritional deficiency. Well, we also said that gut damage also causes nutritional deficiency, so we get wrapped up in this cycle, right? That's why this is such a vicious cycle. And what ends up happening to the patient is, they trust their doctor, so they take the medicine, right? But then the problems persist, and then the problems morph, change, grow, get worse. Now they're frustrated. Right now they're frustrated, they don't know what to do, but they know what they're currently doing isn't working. And so this cycle, you don't want to get stuck in this. And so what do we have to do? What do we need to do? This is why it's the #1 important lesson I could teach you, is because if you are gluten sensitive, you should assume that happened, and you should assume that this has happened. And so the thing that you can do that will stop this cycle is you can analyze, right? You can analyze the what here, right? The nutritional deficiencies. It's different for different people. If anything I've learned in 20 years of practice is no two people are alike, even though they may have the exact same existing conditions. Two people with rheumatoid arthritis caused as a result of gluten exposure, gut damage, nutritional deficiencies, etc. You can analyze their nutritional deficiencies, and they're never identically the same. Everybody's unique in that, right? And that's why it's so important that you understand that this has to be analyzed, because if you've cut out the gluten, right? If you have cut out the gluten and done a good job of doing that, then you stop the gut damage. But again, that doesn't mean that the nutritional deficiencies that you currently have that are causing problems for you magically go away. You have to get that looked at. And in some cases, once you understand this information, you've got a couple of options. The first option is you can eat foods that contain higher quantities of the nutrients that your body is lacking. So for example, if you are low in vitamin B12, then you can incorporate more animal-based protein that is rich in vitamin B12 to help get that deficiency corrected. You can also supplement. And, you know, many vegetarians, for example, want to supplement with B12 because they don't want to eat meat, and that's fine. But if you don't know what deficiencies that you have, then you're now not empowered to make meaningful changes. And if you don't make those meaningful changes, this cycle won't end. It will just continue and continue and continue, leading to problems. So very, very important. Again, number one thing I could teach you. Now, on that note, let's pull this up. I said that, you know, one of the traps that you get stuck in is drug-induced nutritional deficiencies. And this is a common problem, a super common problem. This is why I have a chart for you here, because it's so common that, you know, I wanted to create a chart for you that had some of the most common drugs prescribed and what nutrients they actually depleted. And if you'd like to get access to these charts and diagrams, you can do that. You just have to make sure you subscribe. Go over to glutenfreesociety.org, sign up for our newsletter, largest newsletter in the world for people trying to navigate the gluten-free diet. But this diagram, and this is not by any means, by the way, a comprehensive diagram that lists all medications. There are textbooks that are written on this topic. Unfortunately, those textbooks are not used in medical school to teach medical doctors the nutritional consequences of writing prescriptions. And that's unfortunate. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. You could certainly, you know, print this out and take it to your doctor. You could also just try to have a meaningful conversation with that doctor about the potential for drug-induced nutritional deficiencies. But again, most of them don't train in it, so they don't understand it. They don't know it. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. But this is a very, very real phenomena, a very, very validated phenomena to the level, again, that there are multiple medical textbooks written on the topic. I actually used to lecture nationally to doctors all over the country in the U.S. on this very topic. I have a pretty in-depth, probably one of the most in-depth and researched presentations on this topic. But that aside, common medicines here, you can see blood pressure medicines, cholesterol medicines, diabetic, or pain or anti-inflammatory medicines, heartburn or heart reflux, acid reflux, and then hormone replacement, some of the more common categories. Again, what this chart doesn't include that's pretty common that you should investigate if you ever have to take an antibiotic or antibiotics, because they can cause B vitamin deficiencies. Antibiotics can damage the gut and contribute to the development of yeast overgrowth and a number of other problems. But if you look here, different classes of medications have different effects on different nutrients. And so a lot of these nutrients are the same nutrients I showed you from the research that we know gluten can cause. So gluten can cause, what were those? They were B12 and folate and copper and vitamin D and calcium as some of the more common ones, right? And omega-3. And you look here, the B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, calcium, you'll see CoQ10 on a lot of these. CoQ10 is the rate limiting step for energy production in your cells. And so this is one that massively can cause fatigue. It can, you know, deficiency can elevate your blood pressure. Deficiency can cause congestive heart failure, can cause neurological damage. We see iron on this list. Iron, very, very common deficiency caused not just by gluten. Iron deficiency also under heartburn medications. We see women, those of you who are taking, you know, drugs like hormone replacement, estrogen-based therapies, look at all the B vitamin depletions caused by estrogen. Okay, then we got magnesium, zinc, and selenium that can also be depleted by these hormones. So again, very important. I'm not going to belabor this chart and read it to you, but I think it's important that you know, maybe take a screenshot of this and add it to your library of references for future review. Should you ever have to go on a medicine, or should you ever decide to go on one of these medicines, at the very, very least, you want to know what deficiency could be caused by these different medicines, and you want to potentially aim to supplement so that you don't end up in trouble. I mean, probably the most common one that most people know about are the statins, right? The statins that are very well established and very well known to cause CoQ10 deficiency. The irony here is that statins are used to treat the risk for heart disease, and when you lower CoQ10, you increase the risk for heart disease. So you're treating your heart disease risk in one way and inducing heart disease risk in another, which in my opinion never made sense to trade one risk factor for the same risk factor in another way. But that's the nature of that beast. So you just need to be aware of it. And so again, if you're taking any kind of medication, you need to have that conversation with your doctor about drug-induced nutritional deficiencies. and what you can do to overcome it. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.